give this a test. Okay, hi everybody, so my name is Sarah. There kind of was an introduction earlier, so I don't have to reiterate it, but today we're kind of switching gears into how to develop an effective presentation. So this is kind of be like a three-part sort of agenda. Let me go ahead and read. Oh, okay. So the first part of this presentation is going to be developing the written material. So this is things like your ideas, formulating those ideas, coming up with like your outlines, so that kind of thing. The next part is going to be how to present that material. So this is like the verbal portion. This is like the public speaking portion. And then after, we're going to do an interactive activity. This is going to take up like kind of a majority of the time because I want to be able to give you guys a chance to exercise what you've learned. And then we'll do like a question and answer at the end. All right, so I want to put this quote up here. I won't read it out loud, but this is kind of the guiding framework that helps build presentations. So you're a human giving a presentation to humans, right? And that's important. If you're going to write out, charts and facts and figures, throw that presentation away, send it in an email, because people can read that, right? So this is kind of like the guiding framework, the purpose of a presentation. Okay, so there's a lot of information on this, right? So I'll give you guys a chance to read it really quick. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but you see? Okay, no problem. I will read out loud. So up at the top we have message, right? So this is called a presentation ecosystem. And this is going to be basically everything that's included in a presentation. So at the very top we have what's called message. Then we have visual story over here. And then we have delivery. Okay, so message contains things like audience, ideations, writing, and critique. So this is your prep work, right? Then you have the visual story. So this is the development of the presentation. This is things like your visuals, your data, that kind of thing. This includes your visual thinking, your graphic design, motion design, and critique. And then the last part is your delivery, so your public speaking. And this contains the human component, so that's like that's the verbal and non-verbal components. Then they have like the web device, so how are you going to present it? Is that like on a PowerPoint? Is it a board? Is it a video? Then you have your paper, and then you have your critique. So based off of this information, where would you guess, where would you start? Out of your message, visual story, and delivery. Anybody have any ideas on where you would start with building a presentation? Close. It's going to be the message. And you're going to start with your audience. So it's the first step to building a presentation is understanding your audience. So who are you presenting to? Who's going to be in that crowd? And the reason you want to do this is because if you're going to a big firm, or you're talking to people who've been in the industry for a long time, you're going to want to know the information to build, right? You don't want to give them the basics, because they're probably already going to know the basics. And you just don't want to waste people's time doing that. So that's where you're going to start, is understanding your audience. Okay, let me get my page up here. Okay, so understanding the audience is important. And then, so once we figure that out, just quickly, how long do you guys think it takes to build a presentation? If you had to guess, like how many hours for, say, a 30-slide hour presentation? Any ideas of how long it would take from start to finish? Go ahead.
80.
Close, actually, yeah, that's a good guess. So the average time frame for a PowerPoint with 30 slides is about 36 to 90 hours. And that encompasses everything from understanding your audience, your research, developing the visuals, all of that. So that's the time frame, and that's, that involves all time management to understand, to do, think over it. Okay, so once we've developed, let me go get the next slide here. So this first step is the prep work, right? So developing the message. And so this is everything, like I said, from your audience, your research, you're creating your ideas, you're writing out your outlines, and then critique. So critique basically means like you talk to a coworker, someone in the field who understands and can kind of give you advice throughout the process. Okay. So, like I said, understanding your audience, and we're going to go back to that in a second. So that's important. That's your first step. Second step is ideation. So that's like creating your ideas. And so a good place to start is step away from the computer when you're creating ideas, right? Get paper and pen. It's old school. I know, it's old school. But go to paper and pen, and one thing you want to do is generate as many ideas as you can think of, right? This is quality or quantity over quality right now. And so something I would suggest is if you have sticky notes, put a sticky note out, put an idea using a Sharpie, not a small pen. And you're probably thinking like, well, why would I do that? Because if I won't build enough space, like I want to write a lot. A Sharpie is going to give you so much amount of room. This is getting ideas on a page, big ideas. You know, you're not getting specific, you're just getting ideas down. Generate as many as you want, hundreds, whatever. That's the first step in your ideas. And something I kind of suggest is if you can kind of layer them out too, like in like a flow a little bit, that helps. So if you did like slide one, essentially, list your sticky notes, big ideas, down the line. So that's a great place to start. And then once you start to get your, you've got your ideas out, you've, built them out, you have a lot of sticky notes, start to narrow it down. Using what audience, right? What do they want to see? What's going to be useful? What's my end objective? So using that, start to narrow down those sticky notes. All right, and then writing. So like I said, writing and ideas kind of come together a little bit. Then once you get your sticky notes down, you'll start to build out like an outline. Step one, right? PowerPoint's, first slide. Here's what it's going to have on it. So start to build that out. Still using paper and pen. And the reason for this is because presentation softwares were not built to create ideas. They're used to kind of move those ideas through a process. But they're not generating ideas. They're not effective in generating ideas. So paper and pen. Okay. So let's go back to audience, because audience is, like I said, it's like your foundation for building a presentation. And to do this, there's 7 good questions to ask. So, for example, I'm a career advisor. So I go to a lot of classrooms with like a lot of students. So before I go, I think about what class am I in, right? Am I in a capstone project? Am I in a marketing class? So what students are going to be in there? And so I go through, and the teacher too, because you're presenting to a teacher as well. But I go through and I answer these questions. So what do they like? So I think about like demographic, right? You kind of put yourself in their shoes. Okay, so that's the first question, right? Write down who they are, who the demographic person you presenting to. Second, why are they here? So 1, are they obligated to be there? Do they have to be there? 2, what are they hoping to get out of it, right? Why are they here to see you? Or what are they here to like listen to your content about? Next is like, what are their fears, right? Like you're presenting information so that you can get them somewhere. Right, so maybe I'm here presenting to you guys, and maybe there's a fear of like public speaking, right? And that's what I'm here to talk to you about. Maybe ease some of those fears. How can you solve their problems? So what's in it for the audience, right? What are they going to get out of this? So the next question is, what do you want them to do? So what are the action steps you want them to take after they leave the presentation? So maybe, like for example here, like I hope towards the end, you guys have the ability to create an effective presentation. Maybe you've taken away some key components, reduce some of the fears that you might have, giving you some tips and tricks. So my goal at the end is that you can take a lot of this away with you to help build a presentation. How might they resist? So, for every audience, there might be somebody who maybe disagrees with some content you have. Or, if you're in a persuasive essay, maybe they're on the other side of that idea. So think about who could be resisting and why, and how can you incorporate components in that project that could either educate them further or provide them some insight that they could agree with. And how can you best reach them? So this is a question to think about. How can I present it to you that's going to be informative? Is it going to be interactive? Is it going to be a visual? Like, how can I reach the audience the best? So we're sticking with the question, the audience section still here. And one really cool tip and trick I have for this is called building a persona. So essentially what you want to do is before you start, right, you have these questions, you have your, what you're going to be talking about, what industries you're going to be talking about. So here you can build your audience persona. So for this, basically what you want to do is take a pen and paper out, draw a character of who you think is in the crowd. You can do maybe like a guy, stick figures, right? I can't draw, so mine's stick figures only. And then you'll go through and you'll answer the 7 questions about that person, right? And so you're going to group these people, and you're going to build as many personas as you can think of. And it could be anything from maybe I'm presenting just to students. So I'm going to be mostly student related, but maybe I'm doing something for a convention or an investment seminar. And there's going to be a lot of different groups of people in there. You can build out as many as you like. So you're creating a story, and this helps you connect to people. This helps you make it a human component. This helps you make a human presentation. And so what you want to do is once you've built these characters out, put them at the front of your slide. Not presenting it, but just at the front to keep that mindset as you go through the presentation. All right, so here's kind of an example here. I know it's probably hard to read again, sorry. But this is Ken and Carrie, for example. And they are what we call baby boomers who are going to an investment seminar. And so this is their picture. I answered the 7 questions. And that's what I put at the front of my presentation. Just to remind myself of who I'm presenting to and keep that content related. Is it hard to read? Can you guys read this, or is it? No. It looked good on my computer, I swear. All right, so now we get to the second part, and this is developing the visual story. So you got all your materials written down, you got your characters built out, you're ready to go. So here's in values like a visual thinking, graphic design, so these are your visual, maybe you're putting things like this on here, maybe you're putting data, so say you're presenting to a company and you want to talk about company growth, maybe you're putting charts on there, all that kind of stuff. So one thing I want to focus on is the data component, because this is kind of tricky. So how many of you guys have gone to a presentation where there was just pie charts, some graphs, all that kind of stuff? Yeah? And have you guys ever looked at that and thought, I'm maybe a little more confused than when I started? Yeah. So that's the issue with data a lot of times, is that people will put it on there without realizing how it impacts the audience. All right. So the idea of developing a PowerPoint is that the background should not compete with the content. You don't want to take away from the content because you're informing an audience about something. So being aware of the visuals. Now when it comes to bullet points, right, it looks like I have just a couple in here. Less is more in terms of wording. Once you get too long of the words and you're just reading off the screen, like I said, throw it away, put an email. Because people can read, right? So putting less is more. And oftentimes I suggest students or individuals that are building out these long bullet points is write out the bullet point. Put it all on there first. Go through and highlight those keywords and then remove everything else. And that will give you things like visual thinking, graphic design, motion design, critique. So those are just kind of the bullet point aspects and the building of the background. But I want to go back to the data component. So the common types of data you'll see are pie charts, bar graphs, line graphs, all that kind of stuff. And recently they've kind of found out that a lot of times data can be a disadvantage because people want to take the time to digest and understand the material. And oftentimes when you're going through this, people are clicking, and people are at different speeds of understanding this data. So what we suggest now is it's almost beneficial to print out and give pamphlets out with that data on. Because this will allow people to go through their own process, their own speed of being able to understand and digest that information. And lastly, something you also want to think about too is the main point of data is clarity. So asking how clear is this? Also trying to figure out what graph will provide that information the best. Because certain things where you have the same data set, but you put it into different graphs, it can display different outcomes. So being aware of that data you're putting on is super important. And then the last thing I suggest too is if you already put data up there, make sure you pull the whole data set. Have access to that in case somebody at the end says, hey, I would love to see that full data set so I can understand more. So make sure you're prepared for that too. All right. Okay, so now we've kind of uncovered like the message component, so developing the audience, researching the information, kind of creating ideas, and now we're on to developing the visual story. So the PowerPoint portions of it, data, all that kind of stuff. Anybody have any questions so far? Good? Okay. So next we're going to go to what's called the delivery. So now you have all this done, you're in front of an audience, how do we deliver this? So if you look up here, I want to talk about the human component, because this is like the public speaking portion. This is things like verbal, nonverbal, and all of that. So just guessing, what would you say is the most used between body language, voice, and word use? Anybody have any questions?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, body language, and when you're speaking, you speak clear and you don't lose the attention from the audience.
Yeah, that's a good guess, definitely. So it's actually 55% is visual, so your body language when communicating to an audience. Next we have 38, which is vocal, so using your voice, like the pace of your voice, the tone, whether it's up, down, pausing, that kind of thing. And lastly is the verbal, so like the word choice you use, whether you're using like corporate jargon, so like specific industry words, all of that. And that's 7%, so that's kind of interesting. A lot is the body language. Okay. So this is things like, so now that you've had this, you're aware of your speed of your voice, or the speed of your presentation, your tones, your body language. Are you moving around? Are you making eye contact? Are you asking questions, keep people engaged? These are all things to think about relating back to your audience, who you're presenting to. And people oftentimes get super nervous before they give presentations. And I wanted to touch base on that really quick because that's important. Being nervous before a presentation is a good thing because it tells you that you care. So that's important. And everyone's always nervous before they give a presentation, no matter if they're celebrities, professors, all of that for people. So how do you combat that? So it's important to note that practicing is going to be your best bet. Being a professional with the material, having knowledge of that material. So part of that, 36 hours to 90 hours is that presentation, or is the practice component. So something I suggest is once you have all this developed, you have your presentation, I always suggest that people practice in front of somebody. And I always suggest people set a camera or record it, give the presentation, re-watch it. Because what you'll see is that you might not notice you do something. Maybe you say a lot, maybe you say maybe you just look straight at the person and you don't make eye contact with other people. You'll start to notice those things that you can critique for the next round. So doing that as many times as possible is going to be great. Also what I suggest too is if you use key cards or notes, don't write out your sentences, right? You're going to be not reading it, because if you're reading it, send them an email. So go ahead and use bullet points as keywords that you're going through. So you can refer back to it. If you get lost, you can look and say, oh, we're talking about that. Okay, jog in memory. We're going back into that. So those are some just kind of key points when presenting and public speaking that I recommend. Also, being able to move around the room. and making eye contact with each individual person, because if people want to feel like you're talking to them, and that they're part of the conversation, they're part of the conversation. So those are just some key components for the delivery portion of it. So after all of this, I kind of want to do an activity. So I think we have enough people for partners, I think. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Okay, so either sit like a group of people or just like partner up with somebody. But we're going to do just kind of a quick activity. And so this is going to be kind of pulling together information from developing an audience to the public speaking portion part of it. So let me go ahead and get to my activity slide. Okay. Okay, so if you have enough space, kind of give yourself a little bit of space here. I know it's kind of hard with the room people. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to decide who's going to go first of your partner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the stage for a presentation you're going to give. And what I want you to do is, I'll tell you what that scene is in a second. And I want you to go ahead and, using the 7 questions, I'll go back. Draw a picture of your audience, and then you're going to answer those 7 questions as best as you can. Once you've done that, you're going to turn to your partner and give the speech based off the story I'm about to give you guys. And I want your partner to pull out a paper or like, I don't know, use your phone if that works too, and write down the words like, and So every time your partner says that word in their speech they're giving you, you're going to tally that down. And that's going to give you a good idea about how you're effectively communicating your presentation. So, and then once we're done with that, I'll have you guys split, and you'll give the next person will go. So here's what you're presenting on. Here's the stage I'm setting for you. So you're a student giving a presentation to an audience of school administrators. The school wants to reduce their technology cost, I know it's unrealistic, by removing all laptop and projectors and replacing with whiteboards, right? You don't want that to happen. So you're giving a speech to an administrator talking about why they should stay. So that's the scene. And you're going to be talking to a group of people, and that's going to be like the story outline. So I'll give you guys like, I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes to do it, and then we'll flip to the other person for 10 minutes. How many of you guys realized when you did the tallies, like, were you guys surprised how many times you said or like or any of that? Yeah, it's really eye-opening to see how often people say that. So like I said, yeah, a good way to get through that is practice. Practice. Become like a professional of your material. So now that we're finished that, I just want to show a quick resource real quick. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard Toastmasters before, but it is a really, really good public speaking presentation. I guess club in a sense. But if you guys have your phone with you, you guys can scan this QR code, and it's going to take you to multiple different places that you can go to that work with people on public speaking skills. It's basically meets like once a week. They're local, so you guys can attend those. And there's a ton of great resources. Even if you go to it once or twice, you will get a lot out of it, and it's incredible. So I cannot, yeah, and they are great. They're mostly on college campuses too. I think there might be one here potentially, but Seattle campus does for sure, I think. But go ahead and pull it up and just take a look. It's great.
Yeah, there's no service here.
Well, at the end, I'll send the link out so we can send it out to you also. Yeah, the service down here is not great. And then that's the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any quick questions at all? I know we're quick on time and everything. But hopefully this is informative. Hopefully everyone took something away from it on how to build a presentation, the steps to do so, the different components of it, and you guys can start building out a presentation.
So if you're presenting with like a large group, like more than 5 people, what do you recommend in terms of like splitting up the load or like how to present in a large group?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you're presenting to a large group, it depends.
If you are a large group.
Oh, like multiple people?
A team, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of, that comes down to like what you're presenting on, what style of presentation, if it's a seminar, if it's interactive. But giving equal opportunity for people to speak is important. Also, maybe some person is more versed in certain aspects of the content. So meeting beforehand to acknowledge what tasks people want to take beforehand is great. And like, you know, give people a chance to speak and give them a chance to showcase what they know and give people the opportunity to talk about what they're most comfortable with. So it depends on what style of presentation you're giving ultimately, and also whether it's interactive, how many people, and that kind of thing. But yeah, but meeting beforehand multiple times will be definitely useful. Well, thank you all. Have a good rest of your Saturday.